Alright guys, I'm recording this on January 31st, and so therefore it is still fine for me to talk about New Year's resolutions. Just barely flying through the window because I don't think I can talk about it after February anymore. So basically every year I make a photographic New Year's resolution. I had one in 2015, I had one in 2016, and I have one for this year as well. But before I talk about that, I want to talk about a strap giveaway, because I kind of at the end of last week's video, I'd had kind of a hidden giveaway and you guys are awesome. I got a really good response to it. Had 140 people who entered the strap giveaway, and I had Siri choose a number at random between 1 and 140, and then went through that. It was number 66, and number 66 is a gentleman from Germany named Jonathan Geyer, and I hope I pronounced your name right. But you're going to be getting the Peak Design slide strap absolutely free. I'll send you an email probably after you watch this video, and I'll get your shipping address and I'll get that out to you. So I want to thank everyone. It was awesome. I think it's kind of a fun way to make it kind of interactive. And I went and I replied to everyone's message, no cut and paste, typing with my little finger. So that was pretty cool, and I'll do some more stuff like that as well. But let's talk about New Year's resolutions when it comes to photography. So back in 2015, my New Year's resolution was to shoot more film, because I had a feeling that I was sort of falling in a little bit of a rut. I wasn't experimenting enough, and there's times when I didn't shoot photos that I probably should have. And so I figured if I just put an emphasis on shooting more film, it'll pressure me to make some of those decisions, experiment a little bit more in the process. And it paid off. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I did shoot a lot more film in 2015, and that led to some pretty cool shots I was pretty happy with. So it led to me to kind of experiment a little more, which is cool. My New Year's resolution for 2016 was to shoot more black and white film, because I was kind of seeing the writing on the wall as far as how long is color going to be around. I should at least start building up a skill set for black and white. And so it was kind of an interesting year. So I started with my winter trip in January to Death Valley in Zion. I know, big surprise. And I shot a lot of black and white film on that trip. But I didn't really walk away with anything I was really happy with. But it's just because I'm not really familiar with it yet. It takes a while to kind of get the eye for it. And I think I got a little better with that as I got kind of near the end of the year, where I was actually producing some stuff I was starting to feel like might be kind of decent. But when I went on my spring trip, I didn't bring any black and white film with me. And I think it was because I was kind of bummed from my winter trip that I put so much effort to it and I didn't really get any sort of return from it. And it was also on that spring trip that I ran into a couple scenes that would have been really, really good for black and white. So it kind of takes getting burned like that as far as realizing, you know, this really should be a thing. I really should put more emphasis into this. And so that was kind of a wake-up call. And then I spent some time during the summer learning how to process my own film, to the point where when I went on my fall trip to Zion, I exposed black and white film on a couple different scenes, picked up some color filters to use, and got 2 shots that turned out pretty decent. I mean, I'm sure they could be a little bit better, but it was at least something I could feel happy about and feel like I was actually doing something, which was pretty nice. So by the end of the year, I think that I had fulfilled my New Year's resolution of shooting more black and white film, learning the process, getting more comfortable with the process. And it turned out to be something that I definitely do enjoy. Maybe someday I'll be able to get a full darkroom setup where I'll actually be able to do something with those negatives, you know, other than scanning them and working with them digitally. So let's talk about 2017. So 2017, my New Year's resolution is to print more. That's something that I really have not been doing a lot of, partially because I felt like my priority should be building up a portfolio of images, building up a body of work that I could do something with. I tried early on to sell some prints, to do some shows and stuff along those lines, and I didn't really have a very good response to it, and as a result, I just kind of set it aside. I didn't really feel very enthusiastic about it, because what I found is that when doing some various shows, when I would produce a really nice print, nicely framed everything, the amount that people were willing to pay was basically the amount that it cost to produce it. So it was just a losing battle. I mean, it was fun to show the images, but it just wasn't really moving at all. And so then I just kind of put my nose to the wheel and just kind of started just building up a portfolio of work. And over kind of Christmas break, I created my new website and I started putting the images on there and started thinking, I've probably to the point now where, I can start putting in more emphasis on doing the prints. And what's kind of sad is the fact that in my house, I don't have any prints on the wall unless you consider like this test print that's stuck to the wall with painter's tape over here, unless you consider that to be a print on the wall. Yeah, I don't have anything hanging on my wall, and that's something that I hope to change this year, which is also part of the New Year's resolution. So last year, I announced a project called the Print Project, and basically I chose 2 people, and those 2 people are gonna get a free print at the end of this project. And it's basically gonna document the entire process of making a print with regard to, selecting the image, sort of talking about the image and talking about my goals for that final print. Scanning on a flatbed versus drum scanning, and then the editing necessary on the computer to produce the final print. And that is a project that I now have the ability to kind of start working on. It's been a long time, but basically there's been some big projects around the house. My office got torn to pieces and everything along those lines. But now everything's set up, I can start working on that. I have a little bit more time where I can start working on that as well. So that's a project that you'll be seeing coming up here relatively soon. So those of you that were promised the free prints, you're gonna get them. It will be a 2017 sort of thing. But also when I was updating my website, I now have the ability to sell prints through my website. And if you go to my website, you might be surprised that the prints are not ginormous in size. You're not seeing like 1,000,000 inches by 1.5 million inches, even though that's not quite the proper aspect ratio. Smaller sizes, 12 by 15, 16 by 20. And you might be thinking, what's the point of seeing a print that's only about this big when it's coming from 8 by 10 film, which can do, huge prints? The reason I shoot the 8 by 10 camera isn't necessarily to make huge prints. I mean, that's a nice benefit, but the main thing is that it's got a lot of limitations that makes me work really hard as a photographer. And it makes it where I look at the final result, even if it's a smaller size print, I'm very, very satisfied with the work. So that's the main reason I use the 8 by 10. But when it comes to selling prints, I've done some of the larger prints in the past, and it's really cool to see the images really big, but also not every house can have huge prints on the wall. I mean, it'd be nice to have a house where you can have these ginormous prints and they still might kind of seem small on the wall, but the house my wife and I live in, it was built in the 1950s. It's a little bit of a smaller house, and there's really space for probably 3 photos on the wall, and we're not talking really, really big prints. So in my own house, I would have a hard time putting a huge print on the wall. So I figured I'm gonna put the emphasis on creating smaller prints that are more manageable, more reasonable when it comes to pricing. And also when they're smaller, you don't have to worry about having everything professionally mounted before it gets shipped to the customer, which then you have the complexity of shipping glass and everything along those lines. So basically through my website, I have 12 by 15 and 16 by 20 inch prints offered. But in order to do that, I'm gonna have to send the images off to get drum scanned and all that. But it ends up being kind of a big project, but it's something I'm really excited about doing in 2017 because there's nothing quite like looking at the final result. And also I think I'm gonna document the process of creating those images that are going to be on the wall in my own house. And that'll be kind of an interesting decision as far as which photos and why and all the stuff along those lines. So my question for you guys is, what are your New Year's resolutions when it comes to photography for 2017? I'd love to see it in the comments down below. And I think it's kind of cool to see that. I'd love to read everyone's comments on that. I want to thank everyone for watching, and we'll see you around next week.